for people not voting. Now, my father was an immigrant, became a citizen, then he fought for America and he served in the U.S. Air Force. So you can be rest assured with a German father, we were voting every election. Top reasons are too busy. People are too busy. I don't know what they can possibly do that they couldn't go cast a vote. That's number one reason. Illness, not interested. Ask yourself this question: how could you not be interested in going and expressing your will at the ballot box when in fact you're electing men and women who are going to shape your life and community? Did not like the candidates or campaign issues. Now I can understand that. Out of town, didn't know there was an election, registration problems, inconvenient polling place, transportation problems, Dan, now that's an important one. Bad weather, or they forgot to vote. People, you came to this country because it's a great country and you want to be part of this community and building, and you've got to be part of the democracy. It's vitally important. In fact, the country that you're from, which I find interesting, a lot of Americans do not travel. I'm pretty sure on this panel, all of us have traveled and we don't suffer from that provincial outlook. But most Americans don't know that 160 million people are living in a very small place in East Asia. They just simply don't know. But there are issues here that will affect your country. Climate change, the rising sea level. You realize that any of these places that are subject to rising sea levels are subject to being wiped off the map. And in this state, Dan was talking about our General Assembly, they are trying to legislate science and facts, as opposed to actually going with hard science on those issues. There are some other issues that the community could take part in that are a problem. The other day at the Goodwin House, and I welcome any of you to come to our headquarters at 220 Hillsborough Street, right down the street from the General Assembly, we had an event on human trafficking, which is an issue that actually preys on immigrant communities. These are areas that by working together, we can actually make a difference in our communities. So I invite you to come down to our headquarters. I invite you to reach out through our host here. Come and get involved in Wake County or your local party if you're from Fayetteville and Cumberland County. And I invite you to contact me anytime, as Razadul does on Facebook. And let's see if we can't make a difference in this state, because I know in my family that even though on my dad's side, they came here in 1954, when my father died, he died a Democrat and he died an American. And he was proud to do so. And I'm proud to be his son serving in this capacity. And I know in this room, there are some children here that are going to rise up and have these positions just like we have. So don't let your dreams be pushed aside. So my message to you is, this is a big tent party. We need all of you and we want to work with you because we know that you can make a difference in this state. And by making a difference in this state, you'll have advocates for your issues back home. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Randy Waller. That was a great speech. Now I have the privilege to request our Honorable Congressman David Price. Let me talk a little bit about him. Congressman David Price was born in Irving, Tennessee, and he had his undergraduate degree done from University of Chapel Hill. And he had his bachelor as well as PhD from Yale University, and he had been in the faculty of Duke University, and he is currently the ranking member of Homeland Security Appropriations Subcommittee. Also, he is the ranking member of Subcommittee for Preparation for Military Construction and Veteran Affairs. It is our great pleasure and proud privilege that despite this nice weather, and we had a pre-long winter this year, and everybody is waiting for the spring to come, and there are a lot of things to do outside. So in spite of that reality, we are very much grateful that he took the trouble to come over here and meet with us. So with these few words, I'd like to request Congressman David Price to have his. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank Islam for organizing this today, as well as many of you who put this event together. We had anticipated it for some time. We're glad to get everything together so that we could have this discussion. I understand some folks are here from Fayetteville. Who are the Fayetteville? All right. Well, I just came from Fayetteville. It's a pretty day there too, and the Dogwood Festival is in full bloom. So that's a new part of the 4th District, which I've spent a good bit of time in. And so this program today I have come back and look forward to, and want to thank you for inviting me. My instructions today are to say a word about the U.S.-Bangladeshi relationship and some of the issues there, and then something about American politics. I'm very glad, though, that I didn't go first, because these gentlemen have already said most of what needs to be said, I think. I will not dwell on that. I think we'll all want to take your questions and not talk at you so much, not make too many assumptions about what you're interested in. But I think both Dan Blue, our Wake County chairman, and Randy Muller, our state Democratic chairman, have given very good introductions to our party and to local politics, to North Carolina politics, and to the reason that we really have a lot to gain from your active interest and involvement. We do work very hard at being a welcoming, inclusive party. We admit readily that we have many differences among us. We have diverse points of view. We have never in the Democratic Party tried to enforce any one position. We have principles that unite us, and we try to be effective in working for those principles. But we also have what I think Randy called a Big Tent approach. If he didn't call it that, that's what I'll call it, an inclusive approach. And certainly the immigrant communities, the diverse ethnic communities in our country are very, very important of that mosaic, of that inclusive pattern. I want to introduce Asher Hildebrand, who's with me today. Asher's our district director. And before that, Asher worked in Washington on the House Democracy Partnership, among other things, which is a bipartisan commission that I have chaired and been the top Democrat on for quite some time, where we've worked with parliaments in emerging democracies, countries that where the parliament is attempting to establish itself as an effective institution, and where they welcome our engagement and our help. And it was that work that took us to Bangladesh. Asher was on that trip as well. In 2010, we visited the country. And we were really welcomed warmly. I mean, there wasn't any question that people, actually across the political spectrum, were glad to see us, wanted to talk with us, wanted to engage, sometimes in a very impassioned way on the issues, that they valued very much the relationship with our country. I think we left feeling that. We also left feeling that the politics of Bangladesh is somewhat troubled, and that it is often conflict-ridden, and that often elections, political activities suffer from boycotts and from a kind of withdrawal of political participation. I mean, you know that history and that reality much better than I do. But I think Asher and I and the colleagues who were with us came home with a new appreciation for this country and its importance as a moderate Islamic country, a country aspiring to democracy, a country that has potentially a tremendous role in South Asia and in trade relationships, the economic relationships of this country. We, I think, wanted to affirm and did affirm the goals that the United States has with respect to Bangladesh. Support for political stability, support for expanding democracy, support for economic development, support for liberalized trade and investment, support for human rights, support for the kind of military-to-military exchange that will give us effective ways of cooperating and improve military practices. The United States has a long-standing supportive relationship with Bangladesh and puts great value on it. The Pacific Command, the United States Pacific Command, works closely with Bangladesh to help expand and improve Bangladesh's contributions to peacekeeping, which have been extensive, to humanitarian assistance, to disaster relief, to maritime security. There are many, many ways that our country can and should cooperate with Bangladesh. Now, we identify with Bangladesh as a parliamentary democracy. It's been led typically by one of two political parties. When we were in Bangladesh in 2010, the Awami League under Sheikh Hasina had just resumed power, had just won the election. The BNP had gone out of power, led by former Prime Minister Khalida Zia. Those two women, formidable women, very strong, powerful women, who left no doubt in their conversations with us that they have very long memories. And some of these conflicts and fights that occurred over the years are just as fresh as probably the first day. And of course, you understand there's again, better than I do, that there is really a negative side to that. Often Bangladeshi politics has seemed somewhat stuck, somewhat unable to move beyond these warring parties led by these leaders who, while they've shown some good leadership qualities in the past, also tend to be somewhat stuck in the past and don't easily move on to new ways of doing things. Unfortunately, political violence has long been a part of the landscape in Bangladesh. Both parties, you have to say, when they've been in opposition, have sometimes resorted to blockades, demonstrations, general protests, strikes. In June 2011, the opposition BNP party initiated a hartal, a strike, to protest government plans to revise the so-called caretaker government provision. In the country's most recent parliamentary elections, January of this year, the governing party celebrated an overwhelming victory, 232 out of 300 seats in the new parliament. But, as you know, it was not a victory without some ambiguity. Starting with the fact that the BNP boycotted the election and actually tried to discourage turnout. And there seems to have been some questionable practices on the part of the majority party in terms of padding the results, perhaps, the accusations, in other words, of an election that left something to be desired in terms of the process. I'm not going to try to judge that here, except to say that this makes it hard to maintain a legitimate democracy, this kind of practice. I know that it's much more common in other countries to boycott elections, to withdraw from parliamentary participation, much more common than it is here. I have to tell you, I've never understood it fully. Never thought it was a particularly good idea, because it tends to reinforce exclusion and to make it very difficult to turn over power. But anyway, that's the pattern in Bangladesh. And I think we need to continue to engage there. I think as a parliament, as a Congress, we need to engage with colleagues there, because it is an important country, and I think there are things we can learn from each other, ways we can support each other that will strengthen both countries. Now, finally, just a word about trade and about the generalized system of preferences, the GSP, a very important U.S. policy and equivalent to European policy with respect to Bangladesh and other countries in the developing world. The GSP program provides a non-reciprocal, duty-free tariff treatment to certain products imported from developing countries. It's one of several U.S. trade preference programs through which the U.S. tries to support developing countries to expand their economies. It's no secret that trade policy in this country is rather controversial. I just returned from a conference on East Asia and South Asia, a conference based in Tokyo, where we were talking about the proposed Trans-Pacific Agreement, which Bangladesh is not a part of, but Bangladesh these days does not want to be a part of. That is a very controversial proposition in our own country. Trade agreements have been identified, whether rightly or wrongly. They've been identified with the loss of jobs overseas and with some of the declining American manufacturing prospects. So I'm not going to get into that today, except to say that the GSP has not been as controversial, although right now we haven't yet renewed it, I have to say, and there are some hints that some of the broader trade disputes, broader trade controversies that have actually been present in both of our political parties are affecting this GSP debate. So the program has lapsed. It's lapsed for all the participating countries, not just Bangladesh, and it's not been renewed by this Congress. Just quickly, there are some conditions on this program, and I think there have to be some conditions on this program, because we can't be involved in a program like this that doesn't strive, I think, to improve conditions in the recipient countries, in the beneficiary countries, and also doesn't protect vulnerable workers and industries in our country. And so that's the reason for some of these conditions. There are internationally recognized worker rights that we try to make sure the GSP countries are honoring. We need to make sure that the products that we're admitting under the GSP are actually made in those beneficiary countries. We need to curb certain products that may be very sensitive in this country. We need to make certain that we're protecting our own workers. Textiles has been much under discussion in this regard for reasons that you can imagine. Now, the GSP situation has become greatly complicated, much more complicated by virtue of the Rana Plaza